Hello and welcome to the Pinfall Rewind. Today we're going back 20 years to the Royal Rumble 2001. My name's Wilbs and joining me today is Barnsey and Jordan. Lads, 20 years ago, what were you up to?
Cool. I think I was in about year 8 of secondary school, and I had just stayed up all night to watch the 2001 Royal Rumble. So when I went to school the next day, I think the last lesson was food tech, and when you're just so tired and losing the will to live a little bit, I was sick in the class and got sent home early. So win-win.
That is a hell of a memory.
You can't forget that.
Yeah. In Jan, I would have been 10, so the three great things in my life back then were probably Tottenham, Pokemon and wrestling. So pretty easy life.
Yeah, I was 14 and I was in senior school. I remember this one was on Channel 4, which in the UK is like a free to view channel. So yeah, I think everyone was sort of staying up at school watching this one. This is when I think WWF was proper in its prime. Like everyone at school was watching it. It's like you had to watch it live because otherwise people would spoil it for you. And yeah, I've been into wrestling for WWF for a couple of years now, so I was proper into this one. This is one I've probably seen so many times.
Yeah.
This was the 14th annual Royal Rumble, and it was headlined by the Royal Rumble match, which was won by Stone Cold Steve Austin. He come in at number 27, last eliminating Kane. This was a really good Rumble match, in my opinion. Again, did you guys enjoy it?
Yeah, going back on this Rumble, the match card before it as well was just insanely good. I don't remember it being... it was just... all of it was just amazing. And the Rumble itself, just sheer class. And like we said on the previous episode in 98 about Rock and Austin, this is when it was hitting that peak. And I just loved the stare down at the end when Austin just has that crimson mask on, just almost getting up in the corner, just staring a hole through the Rock. And the whole crowd is on like sort of the edge of their seat, like this is about to blow up. And that was just an amazing card all round from start to finish. Just absolutely loved this one.
Yeah, absolutely love this one. From the minute his music hits and standing in the ring are the Undertaker and Kane are waiting for him to get down to the ring, and he literally is just like walking as if he's about to kill both of them, even though they're like basically about a foot bigger than him. But yeah, the minute he gets in the ring, he just raises hell, becomes a 3-time winner, etches himself into legacy terms in WWE. Just even from like when you look at the Royal Rumble branding, where he's standing in the middle, in between the Rock and Kurt Angle, and there's just obviously all the guys in the background. You just know he's the main man, and so happy that he obviously come back. It was a real big fan favourite moment winning Rumble, because obviously he'd just been out for a year after the car crash at when was it, Survivor Series 99, and you just found out that it was Rikishi that had done it, and obviously he was then coming in at number 30. Obviously he won a spot there, so you knew that they were going to cross paths coming up, and obviously it was announced that Triple H was the assassin that was with him, who orchestrated the whole ordeal. So they just had this massive rivalry at Survivor Series 2000. You were coming off some of the best matches that I can ever remember seeing, and just the culmination of him returning, winning that Rumble. Just butterflies thinking about it. You just got goosebumps. So good.
Yeah, so with this Rumble, I guess looking back on it, I would have guessed we would have all thought Stone Cold Steve Austin would have been one of the favourites, but the star power in this Rumble, you've obviously got The Rock as well, Kane, Undertaker, even Rikishi at the time was a pretty big star. It must have been one of looking back on it, there's some really good wrestlers in this Rumble match.
Yeah, well, they just done that 6-man main event. Was it the Hell in a Cell at Armageddon, where Rikishi had just been thrown off the top of the cell, and obviously, had 6 of them guys you were just talking about. So going into the Rumble, it was just very, very unpredictable in a way. I mean, you'd probably think Austin was going to win, I suppose, if you had to pick a winner. But yeah, there was so much caliber in there, and the good thing was they were all in there at the end. So yeah, it just made for such a good ending. And yeah, some of them chair shots, obviously, when Austin eliminates Kane at the end, like, they're just absolutely brutal. Like, I'm sure they're covered up a bit more now, but even throughout the whole match, you've got where Kane at the beginning's getting hit by Raven, and he is taking flush shots to the head, and you're like, geez, that just cannot be good for you. But just so many good memories thinking of the 2001 Royal Rumble. We probably remember this one slightly more than 98 that we reviewed in the first ep. So yeah, just amazing.
Yeah, it was still like the flashbacks, like right to censor. It was almost like they got blanked from my mind, and then they came out with that god awful alarm. I was like, blimey, I forgot about that. Just horrendous noise. And it just made it proper tickled me how they just changed the Godfather to the Good Father. That proper just made me laugh. It was just like those little, like, the Rumble probably made you feel how there was very much a top. You were either in the top card, or there was a very big gap between middle of the card and top cards by like character name and how they were represented. And yeah, like you said, when the top lot were all in at the end, I mean, it could have been anyone's. And as it whittled down, you sort of felt, looking back at it through, as a fan now who's older, the build does seem like it was built for Austin, but back then, I mean, I would have been happy with anyone. And then, it was quite good seeing Taker with the bike as well, which quickly made me die because he got eliminated, and then you could hear him riding the bike back up the ramp. That just killed me. I was like, who's on the bike? And I just see him driving off.
I think in a Royal Rumble, you've always got your winner, but then you've also got someone who really stands out. I think on this one, it's got to be Kane. He had 11 eliminations, which at the time was a record. He was in pretty early as well, wasn't he? And he sort of lasted the whole duration. He was the last one out. They've proper built him up nicely throughout the Rumble.
Yeah, he got the quick one on, was it Taz as well? Like, Taz ran and he just put him on the top turnbuckle and uppercut and back over. And it did make me think, back then, like, I wonder how annoying that was for wrestlers. That's like your one part on the show, and you've got 3 seconds. Because he didn't look too happy coming to the ring, and then he was sort of sat on the turnbuckle and knocked over it.
He knew what was about to happen.
Yeah.
But yeah, it was interesting that Kane and Austin were the last two, and like you said, Kane had 11 eliminations in this Rumble, and I think before this, the record was held by Austin in the 97 one, where he had 10. And obviously anyone who's in the Rumble like 50-odd minutes is obviously going to have pretty much the most. But yeah, Kane obviously went on to hold this record for a good few number of years until recently. So yeah, love Kane. Just like I said on the previous Rewind Rumble, he just scares the life out of me. I mean, at this point where he's starting to lose some of the costume and his arms are coming out, and he's able to talk and be a little bit more human. I'm just coming around to the idea, and obviously, growing up a bit, not so scared, but he was such a badass, and I don't think sometimes he ever got like a big title run that some of the other big stars got, and maybe if they ever look back on that, like the writers at the time, maybe he could have done with having like a 2-3 month title reign at some point in his career. But yeah, what a legend.
Yeah, because I think 2001 was really starting to look good for Kane. Obviously, at WrestleMania he didn't really have the biggest matches, but he was sort of then was in a feud with Austin and Triple H, and it seemed they were sort of getting some good feuds. And then obviously they come in with the invasion angle, and I think it just sort of stopped maybe any momentum he was getting potentially. Because in this Royal Rumble, he looked like the baddest man in the company.
Do you reckon like he was sort of, they didn't want to overshadow Taker with him, and do you reckon that sort of harmed the career maybe? Because Taker wasn't like a serial champion himself. So then to have Kane come in and, win it more than him or even do as much as him, they probably didn't want to do that.
Yeah, never really thought of it that way, but yeah, I suppose that could have been one of the angles. Obviously, The Undertaker's like the love child of WWE, and he's the biggest legend, obviously, as we've seen recently, with him retiring and stuff after a 30-year career. But yeah, I think some people do forget how good Kane was, and I mean, I love Kane, but this Rumble for me was just all about Austin. Austin.
Oh.
Yeah, so Austin was always when he came out, he actually got attacked by Triple H, who basically beat the crap out of him, like cut him busted him open, and so it took him a while to get into the ring. But that was a proper juice job there, wasn't it, on his face?
Yeah, obviously nowadays you don't see too much blood.
No.
But in that one you could see where he'd actually, cut himself on the forehead pretty deep. I'm wondering if he was meant to have put it that far when he's cut himself. But it sort of added to the match because obviously earlier in the night he'd cost Triple H the title against Kurt Angle. I just like it when it's got a sensible storyline to it. It wasn't like it was just like Triple H attacking him randomly. He'd earlier in the night cost him the title because before that on the episode on Raw, Triple H had cost Stone Cold the title. So when there's storyline to it and it's believable, and obviously you are going to be pissed off if someone costs you winning the main belt, it makes it like a reasonable attack. So yeah, I quite like the angle they had. I suppose the only slight gripe is that he just was out for so long. He come pretty much back in. There was about 6 people left. When he got back in the ring, but when he got back in the ring, you just knew there was only going to be one winner.
In that main event as well, he did a Triple H blade as well, so he loved a bit of a blade back then, didn't they? Because he was, even when he came out to beat out Austin, you could still see the blood on his nose and stuff.
Yeah, one other person in the Rumble who got attacked as well was The Rock. He got attacked by the Big Show, who was returning after a few months out. I remember when he came back, actually, that was quite a big deal that the Big Show was back because he'd not been gone for quite a while. And back in the year before, he was one of the main players in WWF.
Yeah, and obviously it was the year after 2000 where you had the controversial ending. Still to this day, people say that the Big Show might have won that Rumble when obviously The Rock and the Big Show were in the last 2. Maybe like Kane, the Big Show sort of didn't really ever have a big title run either. Maybe not really credited with, for how big he was and whatnot. He probably should have had a bigger title run and a bigger push at some point in the company. But yeah, another legend, and you could tell from the commentators when he came out, "What? It's the Big Show!" It was so good.
Yeah, he got a massive pop as well. I will always remember him from climbing out from under the ring and lobbing Austin through a cage, because that cage just flew open. You were thinking, blimey, how strong is he? He just lobbed a grown man.
Yeah. Some Valentine's Day Massacre 99, I think that was. Jeez.
Cool. What a pay-per-view name.
Speaking of commentators, how would JR, when he sort of sold it on Austin winning as well, how good was that? He's like, proper giving it large, like Stone Cold, like it just like so good. You don't really hear that sort of stuff now, do you? It's like
I think go on.
I was going to say when Stone Cold was at his height, JR also was like at his peak. It's like they sort of, I guess they were really close friends in real life as well, but they built it like that as well. And whenever Austin had like a main event pay-per-view match, the raw emotion sort of come out in JR. It's almost like that just come from the heart instead of like just being told what to say or having like a script to read off. It just felt so raw emotion. And yeah, JR back then was just incredible.
Yeah, it was the way he sort of lost his voice at the end, wasn't it? Austin's going to WrestleMania. Yeah, so good. And I think as well that something that gets a little bit underplayed was how good the King plays like co-commentator with JR, because he sort of prods him and he almost like doesn't aggravate him, but he knows how to make him react really strongly. And yeah, just the end. I mean, they always say a commentator makes a goal in football and stuff like that we see over here, but you can't imagine JR not commentating on that Royal Rumble win, because it's sort of it's embedded in your memory that them two go hand in hand, and just a great combination.
Yeah, another match where JR sort of really sold it and was big on was the Intercontinental ladder match where Chris Jericho defeated Chris Benoit to win the IC title. I think in time now you find out that JR is such a big fan and always has been a big fan of Jericho, but he proper sold it on this one as well. He was proper giving it like Jericho. I guess it's obviously the ladder match sort of like how it goes, but what a match that one was.
Yeah, just talking about JR in that match, I think you sort of get that raw emotion as well, because that was the first ladder match on pay-per-view since The Rock and Triple H at SummerSlam 98. So you're talking pretty much 18 months. So then when you get to see two, stars go in the ring, Benoit and Jericho, obviously we look back now that two of the best that I remember technically. Just such a great rivalry they both had. And just like with JR, obviously, I think you don't see a ladder, like if you haven't seen a ladder match for 18 months and then these two put on this match, you're going to be blown away. And just, I think, give it even more. But yeah, I love this match. Just, again, brutal, hard hitting. It just looked real. It blurred the lines of, real and fake. Just some of the spots, the what was it called? The submission that Jericho was doing on top of the ladder, just bending his back.
Was it Jericho?
Yeah, the Walls of Jericho. It's such a good match. Just the hits when he's going through the ropes to the outside, just fully committed. Literally, yeah, love that match.
Yeah, absolutely incredible ladder match. Back then in 2000 and into my teens, I know I was a massive Jericho-holic. Whenever I played the goddamn SmackDown games, whatever, I would be him because it was just incredible. And what a ladder match! Probably one of the best ever. Be hard to find one just as good. Both in it, both their wrestling abilities were just absolutely incredible. And especially the Jericho side, we also saw what he's gone on to do since, and he's still a major player within the industry. And you could always tell with him how smart he is with wrestling. Like, he could probably do it all. He could probably book. He could probably commentate. He's just it runs through his blood, this industry, and just an absolute legend as well. And where we are now in 2021, it's always good to go back and just remind yourself of how good these guys were back in their day. Because you look at them now and you think, they passed it and stuff. But when you go back and just watch them tear it up, you can see why they have the reputation and respect they have now.
Yeah, as well, just like seeing another Benoit match, because obviously WWE over the last decade or whatnot, they've tried their best to sort of, cover up that he ever existed, and just to be able to watch him in the ring again. I know obviously the tragedy that happened at the end of his life, but what a wrestler he was. It goes without saying. He was just literally incredible, and he was someone that I would never have wanted to pick a fight with in my life. No way.
Yeah, well, back in the day, he was definitely one of my favourite wrestlers. Like, when he won it at WrestleMania 20, I was just like proper hyped for him. He was like literally one of my favourite wrestlers. But obviously, I think now going back watching his matches, sometimes you do feel a little bit uncomfortable, especially when you know what happened to him, and you see some of the bumps he took when he's doing the headbutt off the ladder, and he's flying through the ropes into a chair, and then what unfortunately happens years later. You just, I don't know, I almost can't enjoy his matches anymore, which is a bit of a shame because of how much I liked him in the past. But I can still appreciate it as a good match, but maybe, obviously back in the day I would have enjoyed it a lot more.
Yeah,
I agree. And unfortunately, around that time when the steroids and the head injuries, the health and safety just wasn't anywhere near as it was now. And I think it wasn't until that doctor for the NFL in sort of 2009 sort of really looked into concussions and such a big effect they have on a person. It could all been prevented, but unfortunately that all come after what had obviously transpired, which is a massive shame, because like you, it is quite uncomfortable going back, and then you see the match and you see the blows to the head, and it is a bit like if they were a bit more on it, you could probably protect him a bit more. But that's just how wrestling was back then. Like in the first match, Edge and Christian doing the double concerto. I mean, you just wouldn't get away with that nowadays, just clanging someone unprotected to the head with two steel chairs.
Yeah, now it's sort of changed the way wrestling is, because there's no way they take chair shots as cleanly as they did back in the day. And it was sort of like, I watched the documentary on Benoit with Jericho, and he says back in the day, you just basically had to, grit your teeth, stand there and take it. And it's like, that's you're talking about a 250-pound guy with a steel chair hitting you clean in the head. They just can't be good for anyone. But yeah, such a good match for me. I still look at it so fondly, and just you sort of. I think you have to try and just think past it. But yeah, I can see what you're saying about it being uncomfortable.
If you just respect the wrestling ability of it, you can go and just appreciate the match itself. But yeah, I do agree where like it does bring that sort of uncomfortableness with it.
Yeah, your mind wanders a little bit, but
Yeah.
like Barnes said, it was good to see like a one-on-one ladder match because in the years before this, it'd all been tag team sort of ladder matches, hadn't it? Like the Hardys, the Dudleys, they'd done it over a few pay-per-views. So it's good to see sort of a one-on-one ladder match on pay-per-view. That was really good. But yeah, talking about tag teams, obviously we had the Dudley boys winning the tag team championship for the second time. They defeated Edge and Christian. And when you're watching this, you just think, how good was tag team wrestling back in 2001?
One of my biggest gripes with current wrestling or in current WWE is just the lack of tag teams they keep about. And I think they need to go back and watch this because when they're setting up for that 3D, the pop is incredible. I don't think I've ever heard a finisher for a tag team be so loud. It's like they're in position and the whole crowd's like 3D, and it's just like even Edge and Christian, just amazing. And you think about the great tag teams back then, it winds me up that WWE don't take it as seriously now.
Yeah, they were all just so good back on the mic then as well. They all had their own catchphrases as if they were like singles wrestlers, and you sort of feel like now they don't. The tag teams barely cut promos or have any time in the ring other than when they're like actually having a match. Whereas back in the day, yeah, tag team wrestling it felt like was held more in high regard than it is now. But I suppose when we're looking back, we are talking about two of the greatest tag teams that I in my opinion, going at it on a card, and it just added to the pay-per-view that just 4 solid matches before that Rumble match.
The thing with tag team as well, it is essentially its own art form because you rely on someone to be as good as you. When you're in singles, you're sort of almost, there's 2 of you, you've got to just back off with one another and sort of have a chemistry. When there's 4 of you, it's a lot harder, and you notice it back then, like none of those guys really were in the Rumble at the end. They knew they were tag teams, as like nowadays you have all these tag teams out of X singles, and then one of them's in like the last 4 of the Rumble, potentially winning it, and it's like, right, so another tag team now splitting up, and they just need to get back to that where make the tag more of an art form. You have your tags there because over the recent years, WWE have had some amazing tag teams that have come and gone, or they've disbanded them, and it should be a division we should be highly regarded about. Like when this 2021 pay-per-view comes about, we should have a massive tag team title match to open it, like we did back then. And WWE, go back and watch your own content because we need tags back.
And the thing as well, these tag teams sort of went on to have good singles careers as well. You think Edge and Christian, both former world champions, Jeff Hardy from the Hardy Boys. They were good. They had their time as a tag team, and then they moved them on. Where it seems like WWE don't know how to start them and when to sort of merge them, and don't know. The chemistry just isn't there really, where it was back in 2001.
Yeah, you think the only tag team that's sort of gone through that formula you just said then is probably the New Day with Big E now and sort of Kofi, Kofi came back to New Day, but it's the only one where they've had a long stint. You knew they were a tag team. Now Big E's allowed to sort of move on and work his way up.
Let's touch on another match. Let's go to the WWF title match, which was we've touched on it a little bit, which was Kurt Angle, champion, retaining against Triple H. This is when Stone Cold Steve Austin came down, like we said, and cost Triple H the match. The sort of subplot to this match as well was the sort of love triangle going on between Stephanie, Trish, and Vince McMahon.
I mean, back then, Vinny made sure he was all over the main event scene. The McMahon Helmsley with Triple H and Steph, I remember them, and they were classed as the sort of heels at the top. But yeah, Trish being sort of in the middle of it was a bit weird, being Kurt Angle's manager, sort of just thrust into it. But the match is amazing. Kurt Angle, again, just one of those wrestlers back in the day who was just absolutely outstanding. Injuries which plagued him, and then sort of the sort of painkiller sort of issues he had may have shortened his career or shortened how high he could have been in his career. But an absolutely incredible wrestler. I'll never see anyone hit a moonsault as high as he does and always miss.
Yeah, I love Kurt Angle. And I sort of, It was a weird subplot having, like you said, Vince, Trish, and obviously Linda was the story with her that was on high, medication, so that she didn't really know what was going on. But obviously Trish was thrusted into the match because of the triangle going on with Steph and Triple H, so it did add a little bit of value to the storyline. But it was just great to see Angle, like we said with some of the other guys, Angle and Triple H in their prime going at it. You just get excited when you see that caliber in the ring.
I was just going to say that when I was watching this back in 2001, and maybe like when I used to watch it all the time, this was one of the matches I didn't really sort of rate when I was. But now looking back on it, maybe through older eyes, I really appreciate this match. It's a really solid match.
Yeah. I think as well, when you're sort of younger, you just look at the pops and you sort of want the chaos. And as you get older, you sort of appreciate the moves and stuff, and especially WWE back then, they were just sort of almost, with the likes of Benoit, Jericho, Guerrero, they were moving into that, technical wrestling side of it. So when you look back on it, you go, God, they could actually really go. I was just going to say, I just love the cat fight, and then Vince running down to take them all backstage. Just again, El Hebner goes down. It's just classic back then, and then just chaos.
Yeah, he loves having Trish on his shoulder, doesn't he, for sure. But yeah, I was just going to say as well, I think Triple H is the best seller of any punch. He's just such a great seller of any move. I reckon if I went to headbutt him or punch him, he'd make me look like I was $1 million as well. Just an incredible worker in the ring. Yeah, I just love Triple H. He's up there with Austin for me as being one of my favourites.
So the last match we need to speak about is the women's title match, which was Ivory defeating Chyna. This is obviously a long-term storyline where it looked like Chyna was injured and Ivory pinned her, and then obviously they go on to fight again. But how good was it to sort of see this? Well, just looking at Chyna now compared to when we looked at her like in 1998, when she was sort of a bodyguard, where now within a few years she's an active sort of wrestler.
Mm. Yeah, obviously she's like, she looks so impressive as a female. And when I was watching it, I was actually, she resembles a little bit now, Charlotte Flair, just like got the same sort of muscle build, just a badass. And she was sort of one of the first people that really, sort of trailblazed within WWE as being an active wrestler. And she was so good and strong. And for 3.5 minutes, she literally kicked Ivory's bum. But yeah, it was, when it first happened, I remember thinking back, watching it live, I was like, oh my God, Chyna's in bother here. This is the last time we're ever going to see her. And obviously now when you look back and I was watching it, I was like, oh, it's a little bit, I didn't really like the finish too much, but it was the only way that Ivory was ever going to win. So you could see why they did it. But yeah, like George said, I just can't get out of my head the music that Ivory comes out to, just that horrible, it's almost like a countdown. Like, oh, I just hate it. But yeah, they utilised, like, obviously Ivory and Val Venus and the Good Father, as we touched on, so well. And they didn't dominate WWE, but they were certainly around the main storyline for a while when they were on a lot of pay-per-views together. But yeah, love watching Chyna, and obviously it's great when she does come back and has a few more matches.
Yeah, I think it was good just to appreciate how big a star Chyna had been. Because, like you said, in the 98, when she was with DX, then she's sort of like the big bodyguard protecting Shawn and Triple H, is like quiet and just stands there. And then, she had stints with Eddie, Jericho. I think she had a few with Jeff Jarrett, and just became her own sort of entity and star in her own right. And yeah, it was just good to appreciate that. Completely forgot she came out of that old cannon firework thing. That was pretty cool.
Yeah.
Again, something that health and safety would probably take away now.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's just good to see her as the star she was.
While we're talking about the Royal Rumble as well, obviously she was the first female ever to enter a Royal Rumble match. I think it was in '99.
Yeah.
So yeah, she's obviously got a lot of legacy and, broke the way for some of the other females that we see now.
And is she still the only woman who's won a men's title, because she was Intercontinental champ? Was she still the only one, or was the only one?
Well, as long as you don't include the 24/7 championship or the hardcore championship, I guess it probably is.
Yeah.
Don't worry about those.
Yeah.
God. When Raven's like the 35 or something hardcore, and R-Truth's done it like 50 times in the 24/7, they just don't count.
Yeah.
They just don't count.
Because she'd also gone from wrestling men, and then it now looked like she was on the path to sort of being in the women's division. And I think that's where it would have been good to see her a bit more, really, because I think, like, even though she was obviously much bigger than the rest, maybe against the men it wasn't as sort of maybe believable or as great chemistry. Maybe would you agree?
I don't think she gets as much credit for sort of, when they talk about like the Divas Revolution and the Trailblazers like Lita and Trish, doesn't get too much credit because without Chyna entering that Rumble, you probably don't get Jax, Beth Phoenix, and all these wrestlers that have come since her these opportunities to go into a men's Rumble or beat up a man, and it definitely, I think, in one aspect put women wrestling on the map, showing that hey, we can sort of go toe to toe with men. The chemistry may not have been as good as when it is man versus man, but it's definitely quite nice to see, and definitely deserves to be when they sort of talk about Trish and Lita. I feel like she should sort of be in that conversation as well.
Yeah, like I think one of you guys said, it would have been like how good it would have been if she was around sort of now to be facing like the Charlotte Flairs and Sasha Banks, like Bailey. I think like she'd be like, amazing.
Screw that! Imagine her squaring up to Braun Strowman. Just imagine that. How good would that be? Like,
the ninth wonder of the world.
Yeah, man, that would be awesome. Just a shoulder tackle into each other, and they just both like stand up.
I think it'd be nice if she does get into the Hall of Fame, but I guess that is to be seen. Yes, overall, Royal Rumble 2001, really, really good pay-per-view. I saw there was a Twitter account which said which is the best Royal Rumble from the first bell to the last bell, and this one got quite a lot of votes, probably second only to Royal Rumble 1992. So, yeah, I couldn't disagree with it. I think bell-to-bell matches and the Rumble, really, really good.
What I liked about like the Rumbles back in these days was like it was 2 hours 40 minutes of just pure wrestling quality. You had 4 big title matches, and then you had the Royal Rumble match, and it was just perfect. I mean, we have episodes of Raw now that are longer than this, and it's just not needed. And you just see that if you don't have to have so much time to celebrate and watch, just some stupid scenes that they do. If you just keep it classy, keep the 4 belts on the line, and then have a main, Royal Rumble match, it's just so effective. And you never we're obviously going to go on and do another rewind at some point, but there'd be like, times where you're just like, oh, please just end, because it's so long. Whereas this one, it was just solid. You never clock watching. It was just perfect the way they did this back in the day, and this is why I think wrestling was at its height back in sort of the early 2000s, because it was just the way it was produced was just perfect.
Yeah, I think 2001, this was like the end of the Attitude Era, really, and WWE was on fire, and this, for me, was a Flames pay-per-view. Down with the kids there. But, yeah, that will do us for Royal Rumble 2001. Thank you very much for listening. Please remember to give us a follow on Twitter. We are at Pinfall Pod. Subscribe, follow, retweet. See you next time. This is the Pinfall. Ring the bell.